Today I have the honor of interviewing Randal Bays, the 2020 Gordon Tracie Memorial Award winner. He is a renowned musician of Irish music, particularly revered for his work with traditional styles from County Clare and County Galway on the west coast of Ireland. Randal began playing music at the age of 8, including serious study of classical guitar prior to taking up Irish fiddling in the 1970s. David Jacobson of the Irish Heritage Club, the nominator for Mr. Bays for the Gordon Tracie Award, considers him, quote, a unique artist and a real treasure to the Irish community of the Pacific Northwest. His music is powered by a deep love of the culture and a heartfelt wish to share this magnificent tradition with audiences, end quote. Born in Indiana, he now lives in Olympia, Washington. Mr. Bay, it's been said that you have a sense of the feeling of Irish traditional music as handed down. Can you speak to the meaning of this feeling?
Sure, yeah. And thanks, Jason. This is an opportunity to talk about some of this stuff. But as I was saying to you earlier, it's all tied together with my story of how I got involved in this music in the first place, because I'm not Irish. I wasn't born in Ireland, not even an Irish American family. Just my family, I grew up in the Midwest. As far as I know, my family's been here in North America for over 300 years on both sides. So, um, but in any case, that what you just said there about the feeling of it, that really is the heart of the whole thing. When I first got involved with the music, I had already been playing, as you said earlier, since I was a kid. I started very young, and I was involved in a lot of different kinds of music and pretty serious about it. And I had just kind of reached a point in my life. I was in my mid 20s, and I thought I was just kind of tired of the commercialism and things, and tired of the performance orientation of everything in music. And at that time, I was living in Portland, and I just pretty much stumbled into this world of Irish traditional music. I had some friends who were pretty crazy about it, and at the time I thought, oh, these guys are pretentious. You know, they're pursuing this music from someplace else, and I knew nothing whatsoever about Ireland at that time. Just very insular, kind of American. I mean, it's funny to say that when we have a whole continent within which to be insular, but it is the case with a lot of us. We just don't know what goes on out in the world around us. And but in any case, my friends convinced me to come to what we call a session, and that was the turning point. As I like to say, it was a dark and rainy night, and was in Portland, Oregon, mid 70s sometime. And, you know, I just, like I say, I thought these guys were kind of pretentious, but I went along with them. And I walked in the door, and there were people playing music, and the music had a sound to it I hadn't really heard before. And that was great. But also, I could see just a lot of camaraderie, and it's something, a great vibe, as we used to say, you know. And in fact, that night I met a fellow who is still a very close friend, and I've played music with him off and on all these years. And he, very influential Irish musician in the Northwest, Mike Beglin. He's from County Cavan. He's an accordion player. But so over time, I played with Mike, and there a lot of the other musicians down there. But it all started kind of that night, walking into this place in the middle of a big rainstorm in Portland, Oregon.
That's
But
very
the
fascinating.
feeling, I'm sorry, the feeling is handed down. Yeah, that's such a good question, because, like I said, I knew nothing about Ireland, and this music wasn't handed down to me in my family by any stretch. But, and this is where I was saying, Jason, I think the questions, my answers to your questions might overlap a bit, but I got pulled in because of the music. I heard the music, and something happened for me. I went bong, you know. And then you get pulled in, and then you get deeper into the music, and a lot of the tune titles, we play what we call tunes, that we don't call them songs, they're instrumental pieces. A lot of the titles of those things might be in the Irish language, like Sean Sakyo, John in the Fog, and so you get little bits of the Irish language then, and then over time you start saying, well, why is there an Irish language? Why don't they speak that? And then you find out gradually, this is what happened to me anyway, you get pulled deeper and deeper into the community of Irish people. And then when I first started going over there, I really, really felt at home and welcomed. And again, all this time I would have been learning more about Irish history. And when you start to understand the tragedy that's happened there over the last 800-900 years, then the feeling in the music, it's obvious why there's such feeling in the music, because it is born out of many, many years of suffering, but also defiance and a lot of emotion wrapped up even in the happiest of those tunes. So
Oh yes, yeah. And when I listen to Irish music, some of it is very cheerful, but others is very sorrowful. And can you speak more to that history of suffering in Ireland and how that suffering impacts the music, if you could say a little bit more about that?
yeah, well, again, I'm just a fiddle player. I'm not a historian or expert of any kind, but I've made an effort to learn about that history. And again, if you go to Ireland, you'll find it's never dead, the history. It's very alive every moment. And people are well aware of their history and it surrounds you. So, and I feel like it's a history that has a lot to teach us in the modern age. In a word, the people on the island next door more or less occupied the country for hundreds of years. And not only that, they went to extreme, ruthless measures to stamp out the Gaelic culture and to stamp out the Catholic religion that they practiced. And those extremes, it's hard to believe it when you read back on it now, what was done, including mass evictions, throwing people out of their homes and all that. So it's all very well documented. And then, of course, the famine, the great famine of the mid 19th century. And again, I'm no expert, but I think the general feeling is that the British occupiers were well aware that this was happening to the poor Irish because they were still exporting food from Ireland for profit while people were dying by the roadsides. So this kind of thing, again, it's largely unknown to people in America. But like I say, people in Ireland are well aware of it, and it's very important to them to maintain the memory of what happened over those years. And of course, the struggle for independence in Ireland lasted for a long time and culminated in the 1916 uprising in Dublin, and then the War for Independence and the Civil War. And so Ireland has only really been a free country as Ireland for about 100 years, and that's an interesting phenomenon there. So I hope that's addressing your question, Jay.
Oh, yes, very much so. And it really, pulls on one's heart. It's a very important history and it pulls on the heart. Do you have a song or a tune, as you would say, that could share this sadness in the music that you speak of as in
Well,
history?
I do, and it's funny. Um, I guess not funny, but uh, coincidental. So I was thinking of this tune today, and this is, as we say in Irish music, it's a slow tune. We call it a slow air, like an air as a melody. So it's a slow air. And,
Oh, Mr. Bays, it chopped out there a little bit. Could you repeat that last sentence? I'm sorry.
that's Zoom. So this is a piece, again, these slow pieces, we sometimes call them slow airs.
Mm.
So it's basically the melody to a song, but you play it instrumentally. And this one, in the Irish language, Shefa Mawarha, and that means the cause of my sorrows. Now, I don't really know the words of the song, so I don't know what the cause of this person's sorrows were, but could have been many things. But I learned this from an old man named Vincent Griffin in County Clare, a great fiddle player. But should I play it for you?
Yes, please. Please do. That is very touching, very touching. And there's a kind of intensity to it. And I'm wondering how are you able to manifest this intensity?
Uh, well, again, that's interesting. Well, that's what I heard when I heard the piece for the first
Mhm.
time. And I've heard it many times since, played on the fiddle, and I've heard it sung. There's a great singer, Tim Dennehy, who just fantastic singer, and he sang that in Irish, and I didn't understand the words, but I still, all that intensity is there. So it's the way it is in music, you know. If you hear it, if you really hear it, then you try to bring it out, you know, the same way. And sometimes there are technical challenges, especially with the fiddle. It's an ornery instrument to try to play, but you try to, you know, find ways to get the same feeling or intensity that you heard in it originally. So,
Mhm. That's very fascinating, very fascinating. You have performed with the famed Irish musician Martin Hayes and James Kelly. That must have been a remarkable experience. Can you tell a story of your time with them?
oh yeah, well, uh, many stories. I've known both these guys for a long time now. Martin, Martin came to Seattle in the early 90s, and we ended up making a recording together that got to be very famous. So in fact, I'd say it launched Martin's career, made him a very well-known musician. And so there is a funny, quick little story about that. And let's see, I have too many stories is my problem, Jason. So,
Please share them. Share the stories. We want to hear them. Yes.
but well, I'll just very quickly, yeah. So, and I also spent time in Ireland with Martin several times touring, and we did some recording over there. And I got to know his father pretty well, who was a great,
Oh,
very, very.
Mr. Bays, Mr. Bays, the communication cut out again. Could you repeat that last sentence?
I hope I'm not having. I should have a strong link here.
Oh, it's okay. These things happen sometimes. Yeah.
Anyway, so I got to know Martin Hayes's father, PJ Hayes, very well in Ireland, and great, great musician, very well respected man in his part of Ireland and throughout Ireland, really. And it had a big influence, really, through knowing Martin. That's kind of how I had the entree to people in the west of Ireland, the rural heart of the music, as I like to think. But very quick story about when I first encountered Martin. He was in the States. I think he was living in Chicago at the time, but he was not famous or very well known. Great musician, but he came out and a mutual friend had set up a small concert for him in Seattle, a house concert, and she tried to get one of the local guitarists to play with him, but nobody had ever heard of him. So everybody was busy, had gigs. And she asked me, and she said, "Well, you used to play guitar, didn't you?" And I said, "Yeah, I did, but I never heard of this guy." So she finally touched, she said, "Well, finally, you must have heard of his father, PJ Hayes." And boom, of course, I had been listening to tapes of PJ Hayes for years and years and years and just loved his music. So I agreed to get the guitar out of the dust and try to accompany him for this concert. So I came up and we met, and it was just a magical connection. We shook hands, sat down, started playing. And at that time, he was playing a lot of his father's music that I had heard many times. So it was an instant click. And so we practiced for half an hour. We met later that night and played this little gig, and there might have been 12 people there altogether. It was in a house in Wallingford. And but it was great. We both really enjoyed it, and someone made a cassette of the night and gave us each a copy, and off we went. I didn't hear from Martin for another year. And then he called me up. He said, "Hey, I got a recording contract. Do you want to record with me?" And I said, "Sure." So he came down to Portland, and we recorded. We recorded this first album. It's just called Martin Hayes, and we did it in about a day and a half without any effort whatsoever, and then went our ways. But it became a very big deal. It got to be a very famous album, launched his recording career, and we toured quite a bit in Europe after that. And but that was kind of funny. I liked the way it was just kind of coincidental. And after about I don't know, year and a half, 2 years, I kind of backed away. I didn't really want to be so involved with the guitar because I'm still mostly oriented towards the fiddle. So I stopped playing with Martin at that time, and but we're still pals. We run into each other. I saw him in Ireland just last fall, and he's very famous fellow now. So it's hard to walk around on the streets in Ireland with him because he's so recognizable.
Oh, that's very funny. Yeah. Yeah, and to your point of the coincidence or the chance of it, I mean, I guess it's the luck of the Irish, the luckiness of it.
No, there is that. There is the being in the moment and being alive to what is in the moment. That's kind of an Irish thing.
Oh, yes, yes. I understand you are heavily involved with the Cascadia Irish Music Week, an annual summer gathering to experience and learn Irish music in total immersion.
Hmm.
Can you speak about the fruits of this work and its impact on Irish cultural life in the Pacific Northwest?
Well, I'll try. So, one of those early visits to Ireland for me with Martin Hayes and his dad, we went to the Willie Clancy Week. It's a week-long summer school in County Clare, and it's a great, great event. It's been going on, I think, since the 70s, but it has musicians coming from all over the world and all great teachers. But I was really pleased with it. In this regard, at the time, it just seemed completely uncommercial. Like over here, you might think of Irish festivals as really being beer merchandising, and that was common. But this event, it was more about teaching and learning and community, and there was not really any commercialism to it. It was all put on by local volunteers. So I thought, why don't we get something like that going in the Northwest? And so I came back and I was looking around and for a place and a way to do this. And then I ran into an old friend who lived up in the San Juan Islands who had connections with the place up there, the Friday Harbor Labs, belongs to the university. So anyway, so to make a long story short, so we joined forces and we started putting on the Friday Harbor Irish Music Week. And so essentially I co-founded that, and then we brought musicians over from Ireland to teach for that, and that went on for some years, I think about 10 years, and then we decided it wasn't working there. There were issues getting the visas for some of the musicians, and I determined to try to get something going over on the mainland in the summer so young people could be involved, because being way out in the San Juans and being in March, which was the only time we could do it, it was really kind of off limits for younger people. So there was a great man in town who was a wonderful person. He was co-owner of the Galway Traders import store, Hugh Murray. And he was a dear friend to a lot of us. And he passed away, I think this would have been 2012 or so. And I had been talking to some people about trying to get a group going to start something on over here. And John Keane from the Irish Heritage Club walked up to me and he said, "Look, if you get something going like that, again, I want the Heritage Club to help support it." And it was a fantastic thing for us because they had our back for this whole thing. So anyway, we formed a kind of a little group. It was a nonprofit, and then we became part of the Heritage Club. So we're actually a sub program of the Irish Heritage Club, and it was called Ceol Cascadia. Ceol means music in Irish, so Ceol Cascadia, and we formed the Cascadia Irish Music Week, which kicked off in I think 2013. And we missed one year, and then unfortunately we missed this year because of the COVID. But to your question, how has it affected the culture? Well, I'm going to include the Friday Harbor Week and the Cascadia Week, and we've just basically many people. I couldn't tell you how many people. We typically have about 100 people a year from all over the country, but just a lot of really good musicians have emerged out of both of those events. Just excellent by any standards, and great communities up and down the West Coast came out of that camp, and still very strong. So I guess I feel really good. I feel like this music in the traditional style, not the commercial style, but in the traditional style, has kind of gotten embedded now in our Northwest culture, and I really do feel that, and I guess I'm proud of that. So.
Oh, it's a wonderful thing to be proud of. That's excellent. The Cascadia Irish Music Group, as you mentioned, is supported by the Seattle Irish Heritage Club, and for 40 years, the Ethnic Heritage Council has worked to support and strengthen ethnic organizations like the Seattle Irish Heritage Club in their mission to promote and preserve cultural heritage, believing that these have an important mission. In your opinion, why are ethnic organizations important?
Yeah. Well, again, like I say, it's not even. I mean, how to put it? They, like with the Heritage Club, that groups like this exist in most places in the U.S. Irish groups, and they kind of keep Irish expats in touch with each other, expatriates, in touch with each other, and they tend to support and promote activities to demonstrate Irish culture to the population at large. And without that, without some kind of central organization, it's all too easy for what makes Ireland and Irishness different. It's all too easy for it to just disappear, honestly.
Mm.
So I think they serve a great function in that way. And I've thought a lot about this. So that organization and some of the others like it, um, they they've been around for a long time. Let's say since the 19th century. and they would kind of be about the old Ireland, let's say, without being negative, about the way Ireland is traditionally viewed. And there's an entirely new wave of Irish immigrants now, especially in Seattle and places like that, who are really here for the high tech and the business. And you may know this, but Ireland has a great educational system. They've produced many, many very smart and well-educated people who have gone abroad looking for work for their skills and their talents. So a lot of those people have come to Ireland. It's an entirely different group of people, and to be honest, I'm not complaining, but that younger crowd is maybe somewhat less interested in the traditional music and culture. So there are certainly plenty of young people in Ireland and out of Ireland who are very interested in it. But and again, as being someone who's not from Ireland, but I'm here and I'm kind of serving as a representative of this traditional music. It's a kind of a funny position to be in sometimes, but in any case, I do feel it's great that the Heritage Club keeps going, and what they've done for Cascadia Irish Music Week has been fantastic.
Hmm. And I know compared to like the Boston or New York area, the number of Irish immigrants to the Pacific Northwest has remained relatively smaller over all these periods of years. What challenges has this created for preserving Irish heritage in the Pacific Northwest, and how has the community overcome those challenges?
Yeah, well, again, I guess I do feel that uh, the big main thing that a group like the Heritage Club can do and has done a great job of is kind of just connecting people. And I just, even now, I'm always surprised to find that there are Irish born people in, nearby or involved in things that I didn't even know were here. But through the Heritage Club, I hear about them. I find that there are people interested in Irish cultural activities that I didn't know about. And in any big city, it's really easy for connections to be lost.
Mm.
And I think, especially in a city like Seattle, where almost everybody is a blow in, people, there are an awful lot of people in the Seattle region from somewhere else. And I think it makes people a bit more reserved about reaching out, and it makes it a little bit harder to kind of have a sense of a network or community. And that's where these organizations really help quite a bit.
Oh, it's so true. It's so true. And I see we're coming up on time, so this will be the last question, and I'll kind of make it a two-part question because you mentioned earlier that like the history of Ireland has a lot to teach us today. And so, with that, if you could maybe say a little bit more, and also in particular, why is Irish heritage important to you and your community?
Well, like I say, I'm not Irish, but in a way, I'm an adopted Irish to some extent. When I'm over there, the people say "Welcome home," so but they say that to all the Yanks, so it's no big deal. But um, yeah, well, uh, again, like I said, when I first encountered this music, I heard all this feeling. I didn't know anything about the history whatsoever. And so it was a long time of learning and kind of absorbing. And again, being over there a lot and around the people whose ancestors did live that history. And I guess I just developed, I've always just felt an affinity for that narrative and that story, what happened and why, and, you know, and a tremendous admiration for them, the people who've come down to the present with a great culture and a great sense of humor in the face of what they went through. There's a joke I've heard numerous times in Ireland, and they'll say, "Oh, those Brits, they're tough." And I said, "What?" And he said, "Oh, yeah, those Brits, they're really tough." And I said, "What do you mean?" And they say, "Well, they nearly beat us." So that's, but
That's
that
funny.
it's a matter of pride, I think, to a lot of people in Ireland that they are now an independent country. They have their own culture. They have their own future in their hands. They're making their own decisions. And it's really been a great experience in my life to be close to a lot of people who are part of that and understand it. So I hope that
Thank you,
answers
Mr.
the
Bays.
question.
Oh, it does. It does. Thank you so much, Mr. Bays, for interviewing today. And again, congratulations on being the Gordon Tracie Memorial Award winner for 2020. For those who are watching, please like this video and share it with your friends on social media. Thank you very much, and have a good day.
Thank you very much.